opponents' maps, us finding ourselves in coast, that's very dangerous for BDS.
It is going to be very dangerous, but we also have to say BDS in Europe, whenever they were beaten, it was on Oregon throughout the regular stage.
Yeah.
Rogue counter-strutted them, like for example. And you can just continue like that. So if there is a map where they have shown to be able to bleed in EUL, well, it was going to be Oregon. You know, we all know that they have spots named after Shaiko, the infamous pillar where he takes down any player that comes down off the back stairs, but also makes sure that no one will be entering from barrels into blue. And as Thatcher and Yana are being banned, that is the start of the banning phase. Both attackers gone. The mirror will be removed as well. Well, sometimes when you do see the Thatcher ban, a Cade will follow, especially with a bottom floor, a basement, which has a couple of hatches that need opened up.
It's very fair to remove Mirror. It's a standard removal on this map, to be fair, but also if it gets through, they've got Geo on TSM, who is a phenomenal Mirror player, and the way that they can kind of swing themselves aggressively around those one-way sightlines, it's terrifying for a lot of teams, so it kind of was a given. But as I said, it's a pretty standard removal. Anyway, Valk gone too. It really limits a lot of that internal play. You can't get too deep with your cams outside of the building. You'll see some standard spots on the windmill or on the corner of a small tower to give you that sort of canopy across the approach on the big tower and the kids' dorms windows. But it just internalizes a lot of the play. You've still got two teams that are good at getting intel. Sometimes they're a little bit loose in suffering the other hand of that, though. And I think that's where this fight's going to break down, is you can choke rotations pretty aggressively at points. And what we'll see on this very first approach towards this basement is control of the staircases most likely. BDS will often put a single player towards Freezer, a single player towards Laundry, and then bring the rest of the push down from the backside of Oregon, from Blue, from Tower. But it's something that TSM, they're a bit familiar with, because they faced it. I mean, they faced this map a lot, and they've faced pushes like that a lot.
Now, I was saying before, when we were in the operator Ben phase, often when you do see the Thatcher removed, there isn't big opportunity that a Cade on a map like this, where these hatches are important, gets removed as well. And that is, of course, when the Maverick comes into play, and you could open up the hatches like that. You can try and challenge that with Nitros, but the Cade is not there. And that means that BDS is going to be allowed to just use a couple of Excaros to open up these hatches and put some quick pressure down onto the side of TSM. Of course, that might change the further we go and the further we progress in this matchup, but it will definitely be the priority point for them to make sure that these hatches will open up as fast as possible so they can at least put a bit of pressure down.
Well, Bolo is being a bit of a back and forth here on the side of Freezer, but it's achieved that opens up in Tower, takes a Lems as he swings around the back of the door and gets a very early and clean take there. Nobody is in a position to get a bit of revenge or get a bit of response as Shaiko tries to funnel his way down again. We saw Bolo pull back, kind of removed himself from the confrontation here. Maybe knew that there was the double down. There's the drop of the door, and the man, as he was swinging in, very good catch there.
Very good information as well. Just knowing where he is in that case and going for that run out allows you to set yourselves up very early on here. And as a bit of pressure is coming down right now, a drone will be tossed in to possibly get a little bit of information to the side of BDS. They just continue with their work, with their job. As I said, open up these hatches as quick as you possibly can, because you do need it if you want to go for an eventual push, because it does sometimes come down to a Laundry and a Freezer push, and then, well, one or two players dropping from that back hatch.
So Achieved is dancing with a bit of danger here. Obviously was able to get the man advantage quite early on. They're aware of the pressure coming across the other hatches, but they're also aware of the huge amount of time. So this is construction work. This is BDS sort of putting their feelers in, finding out where they might be able to put a bit of stress down. And as Rafal starts that little bit of an approach, you can see the shift of the bodies of TSM restacking themselves across the floor. They've taken up that spot on the freezer door as well. They've put themselves into a little bit more of a mobile, aggressive state. They're making sure that when they realize where the BDS push was coming from, they're stepping and rotating into it.
Grenades being tossed out here. Shaiko is holding steady. He knows one of them is in Freezer, but they need to find an opening, and this grenade is going to have to do that. But the ADS will make sure that that doesn't happen, and Bolo picks up a great kill here. That's a 2-minute advantage now for TSM. Make that 3.
able to drop it there, and it really suddenly puts BDS and Shaiko in an exceptionally tough situation. Sure, all the hatches are open, but at this point, unless you're just going to try and creep down E-Box, well, BDS does a bit of work on the opposite side, finally finds the first TSM body. He is dancing with danger, but he only has 20 seconds, so he's got to take a hot drop. Wants BDS to get a little bit more depth, but unfortunately time runs out, as does his, and Geo drops that kill with Merc, opening things up for TSM.
Strong opening here. Able to keep back to BDS. Not able really to attack the site to a full extent, as they were being shut down even before some of them entered the building. That is, of course, alluding to the spawn peak, or the run out rather, onto Alems. Was rappelling up in the big tower and got himself killed there. Yes, they did manage to open up these hatches at some points, but the site was never really at risk. I think that is something that TSM will be very happy with, as that means their setup hasn't truly been tested for this, well, potential rerun that we would get after the round rotation has been finished. Either way, Kids and Domes will be next on the clock as we quickly rewatch Bolo and his double kill that came through. And we do see a Goyo on the board right now, and a Rooney and a Smoke. It's going to be interesting to see how this, what the setup will exactly look like.
I mean, you play yourself up to Dorms now. As I said, from TSM, that defense, it was very well responded.
Yeah.
They kind of got that early pick, went, right, we don't need to put too much pressure on. We know what they're going to do next. If we try and contest these hatches, chances are we're going to lose. Chances are we're going to drop a body. They get, you know, at worst, or an even body balance back. They waited, and then they found the intel on where the push was coming from and entirely restructured. Obviously left Geo on the backside of Elbow towards the side of blue, to make sure that they couldn't just slip down E-Box as they tried, and they had that bit of cover. And here, this lineup, this kind of prolific setup of stuns, slows, and aggression, I think TSM is going to make sure that what stays consistent about their game on their defense is entirely their pace response to a BDS approach, which does love a big bit of structure to its initial entanglement of the site.
You can see BDS here again, Alems. A very forward position, tried to do the same in barrels the previous round just to maybe deal with some utility quickly, but Bolo, entry kill onto Shaiko. That's the second time in a row now that TSM manages to get the opening kill, and well, BDS not really allowed to exit or enter the building at full power, full force to make sure that they have an opportunity to go for a take here on equal level.
It's hyper aggressive, but it's working so well. Rafal finally finds one early on in the opening minute, but look at the stretch that TSM's going. As I said at the start of this, it's hyper aggressive. They're making sure that BDS are never comfortable. They're not letting them get a handle and a hold on it. He's aware potentially that there's going to be that stretch to the big tower. He's baiting for the play with Merc holding steady, and well, he's not going to hold much longer. Pulls himself back.
There's only 2 more drones available in the pockets of the members that are alive on BDS to try and find some information to put themselves up in a position where they could potentially fight back. And well, as grenades are being tossed in here, this might actually get Charlie if it bounces the right way. You know, it went just a little bit too deep. And now Rafal on the rappel here needs to get this challenge working if they want to have an opportunity of going in this round. But BDS, in the meantime, for that plant, is going to stick it.
Well, BDS has the highest plants, but Bolo's going to see if he can make sure that stat doesn't get any higher. The spray from Alems is able to find one more. A minute left, and he gets one more. A triple for the man that is so often cited as the heart and soul of BDS. Merc, creeping around the backside, can't get the sliver of the body he needs, and we're in a post-plant situation. Well aware, though, of the corner that it's stuck in, and he's hoping he goes for a slightly wide swing here instead of the narrow courtyard. But Alems, with a 4K, claws and tugs and pulls BDS into that site.
Very well played there from BDS. They decided there was an opening, they went for it, they tried to get the plan down, and of course BDS himself got denied just a little bit by the Nitro that came through. But keep in mind, this was a 3-on-5, quickly turned into a 4-on-5 situation where BDS had the man disadvantage. After Bolo started it off, they have achieved right here. Might have been a little bit too aggressive trying to go for the peak rather than trying to go for the run out. But they did manage to stick it here. BDS able to draw it. And Oregon, defense side of map. We have talked about this before. I'm going to pull up the new stats as we speak to see if it should be worrying from a statistical point of view. Of course, there's always two sides.
To me, all stats are worrying.
It's all stats, and you know,
this
it
early
doesn't
in the
have
day
to mean anything.
Yeah,
but it's always good to have a little bit of a feel of when should TSM be worried for the matchup potentially. Now, 1 round is nothing to be worried about.
No,
so don't worry yet.
1 for 1. We're so early.
It's 1 for 1. It's only round 3 now.
On a best of 3.
Yeah.
It's very early on in the play day. We are looking at Oregon, which does lend itself to defenders, but you're also looking at interregional conflict, which has been so back and forth.
And unpredictable.
And I think one of the cool stories about TSM and their approach to this tournament, I think is threaded by the games against Makers, is they were taken a lot by surprise by what Makers were bringing on Clubhouse. Then they get to the big stage yesterday, and the lessons that had been learnt from that first engagement were so clear. And it was, you know, it's not that Makers couldn't really get anything out of it. They were able to pull some bits, but the pace was almost consistently TSM's. They had that handle on it. And now we get to see if any of those lessons learned from the conflicts that they've had throughout groups against each other's regions are going to pay off as we get to these sort of death knell, last throw, best of 3 matches.
The pressure will definitely be on for either of these teams, and both these teams have so much experience. Came in as tournament favorites, and one of them will be sent home here today. Maybe even both if the next matchup wouldn't go their way. Ranchiro has the information on one of these players. Excaris will be deployed to try and dislodge the Melusi behind, but I believe is going to be staying put. Achieved will be actually rotating out into security. There's an open hatch he can rotate through, so we'll use that gladly.
Yeah, Bolo had just popped down as well. We're seeing slightly more timid here from TSM, but understandably. They realized the site got cut in half by Lems going deep, but Shaiko here, he's dancing dangerously. The confrontation almost goes the way of Bolo yet again, but look, he's kind of bouncing up and down those stairs. You can see off in the distance, the rotate to the main stairs has come through for another player. Achieved is still kind of toying where he wants to go, is in a position to offer the cover, but Bolo blows his way all the way past server and digs himself back into a spot where they might not expect it. He's not 100% sure where he wants this fight, but he's sure he wants it.
2 grenades used from Ranchiro, a lot of damage done onto Chala, but the life is still there, and Ranchiro now gets the spot out, so they're going to be aware of the fact that he is in security, but the wallbang comes through. Bolo takes down Ranchiro. Again, the opening kill here for TSM. With Shaiko low on HP as well, this might become a very difficult one as he runs upstairs now. He's going to be trying to make something happen, it looks like. They might not be aware of this. They might not expect him to just be on the white stairs already.
Shaiko, he gets dropped by Achieved. He was just on his way back to site and handed the freebie of the man that crouched up those white stairs. Rafal is in a very tricky situation. No grenades left and consistent pings, and last time it was the deep drive that was able to get that diffuser close to being planted. Alem is going for a different approach, a wider rotate here. Potentially wants to just find one body underneath before they go around the backside of Zulu and see if they can acquiesce themselves into the site itself. But it's Bolo that is the one that's able to win it out. He's holding this bit of turf and territory and saying no one else is allowed to step foot in it. 10 seconds on the board. Brede still has a staircase to climb, which would take the time anyway, so at this point he's just looking for an exit. It's Bolo, one more maybe gifted from the hatch, but TSM, their caution has paid off and they take the second trip round dorms.
Time used there by BDS. There was no way that Brede was going to be winning that from that bottom floor. Most likely using it to discuss a couple of things as they keep on getting caught off guard by the early aggression that TSM manages to bring to them successfully as well. Always it's 1 or 2 kills going the way of TSM early. And it's up to BDS to try and recover from that. And that's not how you want to start a few round. You do not want to start in a recovery run. So they got to make sure that they stop that from happening, that they take the initiative themselves. They want to have a good and decent attacking health, that is.
These are 2 teams that are exceptionally talented. There's no 2 ways about that. Every team here is. But these are 2 teams that are sort of renowned for the players. They've been steadily constructed over time. You can thread the sort of trios and players when they're added and how it's changed and shaped them to what they are. It's a build over time. The juggernauts that we expect now. But even amongst all this massive talent, there's still arguably a renowned fragger on both teams. There's still, for all that everyone can do, there's always going to be that Bolo and Shaiko conversation, as was brought up on the desk. And their energy and how much they're able to bite into a game, I think is going to be one of those tells of how this goes around the structure. It's the confidence. And Bolo is 6-2 after the opening 3 rounds. Shaiko hasn't been able to find anything yet. And you worry if that keeps becoming a one-sided affair, if it keeps becoming this, I cannot pass this player, if that might start eating away at a little bit of BDS.
It's basically the story we've had from BDS so far, right? Shaiko not really able to get into the tournament as well as he would like to. Other players on BDS really taking the charge, and you're thinking of an LMs and Renshiro and a Bride with the massive amount of plans, honestly. Not even sure how he does it. He tried to go for one here, wasn't allowed to get that, to pat those stats, but either way, BDS this time a little bit more heavy towards the blue side of their approach, and flashbangs are being tossed in to deal with the magnets that might be out there, so Geo just tosses a new one in to deny a potential grenade or charge from Ash that would be tossed in to try and deal with that wall.
Rafal in the meantime is droning around the back stairs to see if he can spot Geo, but for the first time, they have the opening frag. Renshiro takes a huge amount of damage, and he gets a second for the effort dug deep, but he can't get a breath of Charla's smoke right now, who pops it early to make sure they have something to restructure themselves around. A fully fledged 5-body push towards the backside of blue and tower. They realized that what was going wrong before was they weren't able to get any land. They weren't able to do the long setup that they wanted to. So let's get aggressive. Let's meet them on the door with all of us and swing our way around. Shaiko and Rafal find one more apiece and achieved. Who opened up this site the last time round is the last site that they might see right now, slips back. But it's the swing of the blue elbow that is able to put BDS at back level and give them that flawless.
Sometimes it can be so simple in Siege. As where first off in round number 1, they try to go for every hatch, they try to go for the top control, and they started pushing in from many different angles, and it didn't really work out for them. LM's taken care of by Achieved within 30 seconds of the matchup, really. And then they decide to just bring it back to basics. Let's go for an elbow push. Let's go for a blue push. We can outgun them if we try. And exactly with that grenade as well. It was a bit of a team kill almost coming in right there. That would have been very unlucky, by the way, because Renshiro had a grenade in hand.
That would have been so dangerous. Like, getting that close to a smoke.
That as well. But I believe
you would only do that on LAN.
you would only do that.
You wouldn't do that online.
No, but like, he also got shot in the back by a teammate, almost lost his life for that. If he dropped the grenade because he had one in his hand, that could have been a double team kill or something coming in. So, you know, that is just a small mistake that was avoided there by BDS. Either way, 2-on-2 is the current score. BDS bringing it back to basics for that final push we just saw and worked out quite well. Of course, it's not something you can continue doing, because if you start doing that, all the utility will be pushed towards those default and standard takes. Now, we are going kitchen dining.
No?
Kitchen meeting again. Yes, sorry.
It's all right.
I saw it. I just said dining.
I know.
It's
the old style of Oregon that still gets you. No, this is the other split. Kitchen is the side across the board, but it's the extension of whether you go to the left and to the right. It's still a very back and forth across most of the regions. I think in EU there's a slight bit more preference for kitchen dining. But over this tournament, I feel like we've seen a little bit more of meeting overall. It's a
we've seen 8 more rounds of meeting, indeed.
Yeah, so you lock off stage, you make sure that they don't have that quick access around the backside. The kitchen corridor that screams its way down to the back line of the tower becomes a pretty aggressive site, but Shaiko, in the meantime, he's knocking on the double door. There's a body above inside trophy that's ready to rotate round towards the support of the hatch of Attic, which you can see one other player already set up by. Machala, in the meantime, just drifts his way on past Shaiko, takes his head off and restructures on a closer corner before realizing, oh no, there's a Maverick there.
Yeah, now some Excaliburs will be used as the Mew Jammer has been taken care of. Oh, that's Bolo really aggressive right here, picks up a kill and is allowed to escape, even though that the stun from LMs came through. And now the second comes in, it's Charla to swing around, gets the double kill himself. It's only up to Renshiro, well, it's only up to Bride now as Renshiro drops. And it looks like TSM is looking to respond to a flawless round by a flawless round themselves.
Well, it's a very tricky situation there. That was exceptionally punished by TSM. As soon as they got that opener on Shaiko, they manipulated themselves into this situation of, okay, well, we brought this body that was above round to the back line, and it was a risk that Bolo took, but it paid off, and that's this game. Lems, he had the opposite. He took a risk and he tried to bury deep and get the trade, but Charla was still holding close on the split corner, was able to pick up a very easy take there. And from that situation, they were just, well, met by their own, I guess, meter that they were able to put down in the previous round. Another flawless 2 in a row, 1 for each team.
But TSM just slightly in the lead again here on map number 1 of the do-or-die matchup for either of these teams. Both would like to continue. Both are tournament favorites. Both have these storied superstar players. Bolo and Shaiko. One a little bit more active than the other currently. Shaiko didn't really have the best game so far. Again, the opening death rate. It was a beautiful shot, that's for sure. And Bolo really showing up huge so far. 7 on 3.
That was a bit of a mistake there. I think one of the things that you really notice about TSM's style is they're always active. They're always moving around. They're always trying to find new angles and new sort of places to hold. They don't sit. They don't wait. And they don't get, I guess, not complacent is the word. They're looking for activity. Whereas BDS on their setups, where they're being punished, like Shaiko was holding that and waiting for success.
What I think BDS tried to do is open up the wall, because you saw them get rid of the Mew Gemmers so they could maybe open it up with Excaro. So what I think they wanted to do is just go for a very quick plant. In that case, you only need lobby control. You need to have the overline sight, because you can just dig in deep right next to the split door. And you had the opportunity to go for the plant there, but TSM, well aware of that, we're harassing them from the hallway, we're harassing them from in the site. And, well, I cannot help but think if Shaiko would have been able to pick up the kill on Charla, that would have been the support in meeting gone. That would have then been able to open up and go for the plant and split. And then suddenly, it would have been a very, very quick retake for TSM that had to happen. Either way, they managed to shut it down before it could even happen. And that means they are in the lead. And now on their final defensive round already for map number 1.
So this is an adaptation now. Lems is going to dig his way underneath. They want to try and pull apart Achieved and Bolo. And they've tried it with kind of lateral pushes over the past 2 times. We saw Lems suffer inside Zulu. We've seen the suffering from the shower side. So instead, go underneath. The concern right now is this loose player as Merc, who hasn't really been tested too much during the holds and during the attacks that they've had around dorms. He's always on that split between Attic and the connector there of the close side. Goes for the X-Kairos, the C4. Make sure it costs a lot of utility. It's a bit of an exchange, but TSM, they're locking down. They're making sure that this is their precious bit of resource.
Now another set used here to make sure they flush them out of the kitchen. That is the entire goal here. They want them to drop through these hatches, but Bolo not having it yet. Lems still has a Claymore in hand, could decide to just put it down there as Lems now goes up the stairs, loses the gunfight. Bolo with a double yet once again. Dispatches BDS in their attempt to try and clear them out of security. And TSM, that is a good man count lead now.
Hell of a game so far from Bolo, and he's still sort of looking for more. He's not resting. It's Gio, though, that gets Rafal, and this lockdown around the server side, around the bottom of White Stairs, has been phenomenal when it's been kicked into gear. The only time they've been able to slip past, well, was the split when they just dug themselves into sight here, and Shiro drops Bolo inside. Can't get the lock off, and with still Achieved just on the corner of the kitchen waiting for this swing. Pre-fires, pops the angle. There's pressure from above as well. I said this was the resource they wanted to keep. And Achieved is cooking up a storm. Bride, in the meantime, has slipped his way up White, but he doesn't get any further. There's 3 flawless rounds in a row, 2 of them at TSM's favor, and a 4-2 demanding half on their defense on Oregon.
A 4-2 is what you would expect a Oregon half to look like. But you cannot help but think that these 2 teams will be bringing it a lot closer than it might be. Because TSM, truth be told, have been in charge of the defensive half. Except for the 2 rounds they lost. When they lost pretty badly as well. But when they won, it wasn't even close. They won with such a giant lead where BDS just had not a single opportunity to try and reply. And now they will be going over to the attack. The 6 pick from Ash to Ash will come in. You don't see it, but I'll tell you. And they are going to
the
basement as well. Yeah, I'll let you know. It's a very, very 300 IQ play. Merc from Ash to Ash.
Is that
classic?
Charla, the respectable young man.
That is Charla the respectable.
That's maybe one of my favorite interview clips. I don't know why it gets to me so much. If you missed, there was a really good pre-game interview with Project Man.
Yeah.
And he was asked the lighthearted question of who's the class clown of the team? Who's the clown of TSM?
Yeah.
And he said, all of them apart from Charla. Charla's a respectable young man.
Charla appreciation poach.
Charla.
You know, but just Charla. So that's it.
To be fair, though, for calling Bolo a clown, I mean, he's making a mockery right now out of this Oregon. He has been all over the place. The pressure is onto them, though. As I've said before, I love TSM's movement. I love how they're being so fluid in terms of their holds. You can see that BDS is trying these different approaches, as I sort of highlighted. But now we get to have the full taste of what's it like on their attacks. Are they going to try and dig themselves in? Are they going to, wait and hold the space that they need to? We've complimented their attacks and their drone game before. It's been very good at highlighting certain players and only really punished by Latin American teams. Right now, though, it's starting here around the backside. Achieved is making quick clear work of the top as they're popping and letting this hot drone go around the corner and swing. You can see one BDS body is actually rotating back up, I think to offer some support to Lems. It's trying to get some, I guess, hold, but they're not 100% sure where to do it from as of yet.
I really like the pass that they placed in the middle of the hallway, and many might say, why would you place it there? That is going to be dying, but it's just to slow down droning. It forces the player of Merc to take care of that pass before the drone can move on, and it just buys you an extra 10, 30 seconds. Like, it was never supposed to catch a drone there. It's just to stop the drones from potentially moving in. It's basically like a mute gemmer in that case. Whilst BDS managed to waste a minute. There's still a bit of a roam going on in the big tower, and as drones are being taken care of, they should be aware of the fact that there is players around as Achieved. We'll be looking to maybe catch one off guard.
I guess they're measuring everything up. We're seeing them set up pretty heavily for a freezer. I think they've read how much is dedicated over to tower, how much of BDS is sort of set up shop there, and it means that they can't have the cleanest rotations. They want to cut off this body. So they're going to sort of, I guess, pop the grenade around the corner first of all. It is a very dangerous game. There's explosives in hand. As soon as Achieved finds the corner that he thinks Renshiro's in.
Can he not see him if he steps a little bit more forward? Oh, okay. I was going to say, like, you might be able to see him there as Andrew gets tossed down. Not dealing a bunch of damage, though, but put pressure from below will now be coming in. Grenades and all the pressure from Bolo as well, the impacts from below. That is suddenly a double kill here for TSM yet once again.
Merc in the meantime took a Lems at the top of Freezer, now around the backside, so they can start their approach around the corner. It was a very good take. Ooh. And there's Shaiko, able to find Merc back and offers them a little bit of a solid behind the rest of the site, as otherwise you could see TSM's claws were enveloping all of the three major staircases. Now, well, it's only 2, but it's also only 30 seconds. So TSM have to start their approach. A lot of time was spent getting rid of the bodies inside tower. It's what you can build with it still. 3 frag grenades, though. Now it's going to be 2, and that one doesn't quite have the reward it wanted. Goes close around the back of the shield, and they're looking to clear that pocket of space onto Laundry. 10 seconds, and Shaiko sprays round the corner of one with Rafal, locking off on the backside of Blue. It's suddenly a triple for Shaiko, and it's suddenly just Geo against the world. Cleaned up inside Laundry. And BDS hold on.
You have a 3-on-5 situation here, and then you're like, all right, normally you should be good. But then you realize there is a reason why we have a Shaiko spot on Oregon in the basement. He just flows from the freezer, grabs a kill, goes back to the pillar, puts down some pressure, realizes the Banshee goes off, so rotates back around through the hallway to pick up the kill onto the sledge. For him to only go back to his oh-so-famous pillar to grab that final kill. Very well played here, by the way, I have to say, from TSM. The clearance on the big tower. They try to isolate him. They managed to find him. And beautiful shots coming now from TSM as well. But just Shaiko on this map, on the fence. A completely different beast compared to what we've seen on the attack. In one round, he managed to get more kills than he did over the entire attacking half.
He's got to have a moment to show up. The turn of the half, obviously going onto your site on your preferred hold. You have this knowledge. Oregon on a 4-2 split isn't the most uncommon. The worry was I mean, the momentum that TSM had built up, 2 flawlesses in a row, it was a response where BDS seemed puzzled on how they wanted to try and get into the site. This time, the approach from TSM was very well maintained in that they knew that they wanted to take every fight as they did. It was a lot of thinking, a lot of tinkering with the take on Renshiro in the top of the tall tower. The Princess fell at the end, but it took a lot of attention away from the rest of the game. It took a lot of attention away from that final push. You saw Achieved go for a massive rotate after that, all the way down to the freezer side. That's another 20 seconds. That's another big blow towards your actual execute, and push came to shove. The player had confidence and sort of was able to battle back.
Well, you know, it is indeed unfortunate you have to rotate with that little time left, but you do really need to get control of Shaiko. You need to shut him down, and the best way to do that is to put in some pressure from that basement, from that freezer. And as I believe Achieved just saw a man running into security there. There's Rafal, whose position is now known and has to be careful to not be taken care of, as we know how deadly of an assassin Achieved can be. If we look back at the Makers game yesterday, snuck in, got a kill, maybe even 2, and then snuck back out to follow himself up with the actual execute spot.
So we never really saw this approach from BDS, which is taking over Attic and clearing that back avenue as well. They didn't take it as aggressors, but it's a pretty common approach here. So they've been more than aware and set up for this. You can see that there's a body in a position just on that split of the door towards the trophy side to make sure they can swing around. It is an entirely focused here. I think the rest of the work is being done towards walk-in. It's just Achieved, really. That's this backline to make sure nobody can swing up white stairs. There's 2 bodies here, and Lems is the one that's looking for the confrontation, but they're sort of in a position of, well, they're steadily opening things up. How long can we wait before we have to react and have to move? That's when Achieved will spring in.
Rafal there in a good spot and finds Achieved. He rotated into the dining and manages to find the first initial kill. And that means BDS now no longer will have to worry about the western side. Just worry about the master bedroom, worry about the attic, because that's where the attack is coming from. And surely they know that, as well as the Nitro there will be shot out. Not successful. Bolo will live for now.
Well, they have that little bit of an entrance, but they're still swinging around the side of the top of white. They still have Attic as far as we can see, and they have those bodies underneath with that C4 in Alem's hand to swing towards the default plant spot. They're aware of that hole and that hold, and that's the danger here right now, is without clearing one more of these avenues, if they try and go default, they'll get dropped by that C4. If they try and pull a little bit further towards the wall, they'll get dropped by either the swing from Attic or the swing from the opposite side. They need to see if they can work out which one of these members they can get rid of, but that shield is making things so tricky and so dangerous. Here comes that debonair dive, and there it stops. The smoke canister played perfectly, but Gio realizes he doesn't have a choice. He's going to risk the man on white instead and hope the smokes are enough to cover that rotation on the split side. The confrontation is exploding all over, but there's that C4, and there's Brede. There's a posted plant, but it's Rafal that clears his way back through. It's Merc. In the meantime, is able to actually drop around the backside. They know roughly where he is. It's who gets the fight first. It's Renshiro, and it's BDS back even.
Have to say, really well played there for BDS. Yes, even TSM managed to get that plan down. It was a 2-on-3 post plan, but as soon as they realized, all right, the last man is inside the kids, everybody's holding, everybody's standing still. Hold the doors, hold the rotations, don't let him get out. Wait for the third member to rotate back up so we can take this fight at the best possible way. And as then he goes aggressive, of course, does get picked up, and we find ourselves in a tactical timeout now. TSM at 4-4. They need to talk. They need to find out what's going wrong. Make sure that they are going to be able to pick up some rounds now, because they do need it if they want to secure themselves at least an overtime.
I would say what we're seeing here from BDS is a very different defensive style to what we saw from TSM. TSM were active, they were mobile, and they were being hyper-aggressive at points. They did pull back on some of those when it didn't work quite so well, but they were making sure they were always in fresh spaces and spots. BDS is much more, I would say, structured. They are holding their own, and TSM aren't testing that directly. as BDS were. They're not sort of digging themselves in. You can see the cogs whirring, and they're taking a bit of ground here and a bit of ground here. And it boiled down to this situation where if they'd have been able to get one more body, if they'd have maybe approached in a similar way to BDS did, where they dug themselves in entirely underneath, took the fight there, and then went up and then tried to... Then that's just one of those 3 problems. It came down to 3 crossfires. They took, in that situation, I would say the right decision, smoked off the top of white, and then tried to dig themselves deep.
It was.
But I'm saying it's successful, and that was the only way that they didn't get insta-killed. The other ways, it was likely. Not definite, but likely.
They didn't have the... Let's just say they didn't have the manpower to make that execute work 100% of the time. But they still went for it, and they still managed to get the plan down. It's just unfortunate that BDS still had replies left. They still had smoke canisters that chipped away so much of the HP, which makes it really hard to, well, play out that post plan afterwards. They still had a Nitro that picked up one of these players who was supposed to be the cover for the actual diffuser carrier. Oh, yeah, you luckily have then the one man pushing through for Matic, able to pick up a kill as well. Maybe actually even 2, I believe, also took down Shaiko. But you're still on a 1-on-3 in that case, and that's not going to be helping you out. So still a very valiant attempt here for TSM, a respectable one. Just unfortunately for them, they did not have the utility or manpower or even the time to bait out all the utility before they decided to stick it. And now the tactical timeout has ended, the prep phase has ended, and that means we're back in the round, back in the action phase with BDS now on the 3rd site. Let's see if they can complete the rotation of TSM will interrupt it just momentarily.
Well, in a strange way, it's the most important one. And I understand why they took the technical timeout now rather than after they'd found themselves closer to map point. Is if BDS took this with the momentum that they'd been able to build over the previous 2, then they're, 2 rounds away from winning it. And then they're back with their full site rotation. They're back down in Laundry, and then they're up to Dorms. If TSM can take this, they know that they still have to go back to Laundry, and they've still got to go back to Dorms, whatever happens, but it won't end the game that way around. If they can get this one instead, and they can have a greater chance of not just success from the team talk, but also they have that backup in case things, start to get a little bit dicey when we're back down to sites that they've already been unable to take away. Here, though, the takeaway is across the top. A quick push with the split coming from either side. It's a little bit of damage, but nothing too big as Bolo drones their way across the top of Attic. They want to clear this heavy hold. Charla is covering the rotation. There's an edge up at the bottom of White Stairs. There's Achieved creeping his way up. He is yet again playing this backline role, but it's a much more dangerous swing if any of the BDS players get a little bit hungry.
Good ping coming through, but the drone will be taken down by Bride, who was playing below, and that means that the information will now be outdated. Chief will know there's still a player there and will be trying to get a grenade in far enough, but I believe the rotation's already coming around as Merc is trying to take the gunfight here, failing to do so, however, but TSM still able to come out on top as they take 2 compared to the 1 from BDS.
They lost the opener and Alems drops 2. Achieved is able to get 1 more there, and suddenly it's a very isolated situation. Bride swings around the bottom of White, but Charla is looking for a bit of revenge. Goes a bit too late to actually get the pop off, and they have bigger concerns right now. It's a man that they're hunting through the floor. The cover comes back. The fire goes to Bolo, though. Drops the man and swings for 1 more down Attic. And a very necessary round for TSM.
Bolo light on his feet, able to dance around the pellets that were being shot in from underneath. With that, able to survive, able to take down Bride, who has a big clutch potential, a big clutch factor to his name. And after that, the instant kill into the player on Attic as well. And now TSM find themselves at a 1-round lead as we are heading into round number 10. As I keep on saying it every single time, we find ourselves on a 4-5 scoreline. And round number 10 hits an important one, because TSM has the opportunity here to secure themselves 2 match points, whereas BDS has the opportunity to bring it back to a draw and make sure that round 11 will be the one that decides who is going to be under so much pressure for map 1.
That was a very big moment there, as you said, danced. It's like the floor is lava.
Or like shotgun pellets coming out.
But
he spikes, that just come out.
And you've got to try and dance around tiptoe and then take a fight elsewhere as well. Yeah. I mean, he's having a hell of a game, and we've already said that a couple of times, but he continues to keep sort of plundering and billowing his way through the blusters of BDS. 5-4, TSM Your tactical timeout has led to success, but as I said, this is where things get dicey. You're back on these two sites. At least you've put that buffer in. Regardless of how these two, if they go against you, you've still got one more opportunity with a site that you just took very well, but also you just took a site very well. You've got that momentum, you've got that energy. You've been able to find something on your attacks, which previously it was looking less and less likely.
Going to see that blitz. This might be a quick push down to elbow, something we saw BDS do quite successfully themselves as well. Luckily for them, there's a shield setup, there's some ADSs, there's a smoke that is playing, but if you're not quick enough with deploying these smokes, the blitz might already be in your face by the moment that you're able to reply. First order of business is get rid of that Banshee. If you do not get rid of it, the whole push will fail. And that means they need to get a grenade or Bolo in position, or Merc, to get rid of that Banshee. They need some form of explosive or destructibility. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to make that push happen.
Bolo, you can see, was heading over to tower. There is a big roam from BDS currently really far away to the depths of Freezer. Here comes the bit of the noise. Here comes that giveaway, and here comes the step up. Merc took care of the Banshee, you assume, as the blitz is tiptoeing around the corner. We are waiting at this moment to see what gets brought over here from BDS, but the double stack on the tower, the pressure of the grenades round to the side of the back of E-Box and Shaiko, and there he goes. Gio digging deep and taking control of elbow, taking control of blue, drops the ADS, and it's the swing of Bolo down the core of long, a triple fed to him by a team that did not expect it. Renshiro, he's got an important fight that he takes, gives him a little bit of the backline, but there is TSM taking control, sweeping aside the hold from before, and setting themselves up one round away from taking BDS's map.
I said it, they were setting themselves up to go for a quick take, for a quick push down to blue. And Bolo allowed to move through the door, allowed to move in to the hallway and get a triple kill all on his own merit there, whilst the Blitz are trying to push out Brede from a potential spot where he could be dangerous to that push. And normally what you do see is that a smoke is playing on that shield. However, this time around, not the case. And that means that he's always going to be too late to try and stall that push, to try and slow it down as Bolo here. 1, 2, 3 as they line up. Puts TSM onto a match point. Not just one, it's two. 2 map points here. 2 opportunities to secure themselves the first map, and that means having the opportunity to close it out on coastline without really being under pressure.
They were able to punish the placidity of BDS. They were complacent with their holds, which, to be fair, if you're secure in the knowledge that your holds are going to do well, you're in a good situation. But there, the late movement back in, the sort of surprise startle of they're already in elbow, we've got to try and get there. Oh no, now they've been able to flood in. They were able to take over so much land. It was frantic and slightly out of position. And this was the punishment that TSM weren't quite able to make happen before, because they were hoping for a slow build and slow burn. You can't rush every single time. That's a wake-up call that you, I guess, as a BDS fan, hope has shaken them a little bit more awake. It's up to TSM now to prove otherwise.
It is definitely. I believe Brede will be playing closer to the elbow now, just in case that the challenge actually comes through, but the challenge is elsewhere. It's Achieve that will be pushing through and trying to take control of the bottom of White, as he was challenged just ever so slightly by Lems. He's not had the big pop-off game yet, but neither has Shaiko. Neither has Brede. None of the BDS players had the pop-up game, just like Bolo is right now. 17 on 5, the man is currently going as Lems gets taken care of Merc with the entry kill. This might be very good here for TSM in round number 11.
What an opening, what a man to get rid of a Lems who's so often the beating heart of the team, clawed BDS into their first round, and here could be the first off the board in their last on Oregon. TSM, they're not looking this in the mouth as of yet. They're steadily droning out again, coalescing this intel and this body advantage. I complimented them about it on their defense. They're not one to throw this to the wind. Sometimes Merc can get a bit aggressive, but it's your entry role. When you're on attack, it kind of comes through in successful ways, as we've just seen. But here, is this fall. Here is this approach. Here is this stack up. And with a minute 20, I mean, they have all the time in the world.
There's plenty of time indeed, as Gio will be making sure that all these hatches get opened up, and Chala will do his own work as well with the Maverick, with the blowtorch, making sure Electric will be under pressure. And now you cannot help but think that TSM is going to go for a synchronized push, a synchronized drop, and going to be trying to outrun BDS. There's one thing that might be... He's standing there, just move. Okay, I was going to say, like, were you so convinced that you can stay there? But of course, it was the cover that came in to make sure that those X-Cars wouldn't last.
Rafal is looking to where the first fight might be, but it's a spread of every single angle and direction. There go the Banshees. The door won't scream too much, but everything else is starting to explode into shrapnel either side. It's the pinch and the push and the pressure with the single body of TSM on the far side. They still have that stretch of Chala. He's making sure they can lock down against Freezer and draw some BDS attention away, but Bolo is going to be potentially the first movement and momentum here. The swing comes through around the back of the pillar. Shaiko suffers, scratches. He's able to survive 20 seconds, and the double starts the spread. That is all the pillar falling, and that is that flood of TSM bodies overwhelming the backside. They knew you were there, and now they know that it's just Renshiro left on the backside of Freezer. Bolo is taken care of. It's a 3 versus 1, but the swing is Merc, and the map is TSM's.
The Nitro not able to catch through, wasn't even going to be able to detonate it either, as it got caught off by TSM, who take map number 1 here. The tactical timeout really coming into play. Able to put up a beautiful rush as well on that basement and that first attempt. And now TSM leading 1 map to 0 over BDS with a 7-4. Amazing.